began at his knuckles and crept up his arm, like ivy wrapping itself around a thick branch until they reached his neck, stopping just shy of his square jaw. There would be no margin for error with this giant of a man, he thought. He would need to hit the angle and the timing perfectly for his plan to be successful. Dimitru appeared restless, shuffling from foot to foot. Each time he moved his neck, the muscles across his shoulders rippled like the surface of a pond being skimmed by pebbles. He looked towards the gantry again. The large yellow pixel spelled out 3 minutes remaining. With his free hand, he removed a tissue from his pocket and dabbed carefully at the beads of sweat forming under his hairline. He wasn't sure if it was the heat wave, claustrophobia, or nervous anticipation that was making his skin burn now. For much of the afternoon, he and Dimitru had never been more than a few meters apart. Even when Dimitru was shut away behind the front door of his 2-story Victorian home, his follower was waiting in a car outside, watching. The building had been converted and divided into 2 rental units. The watcher was struck by its poor maintenance. There was a long vertical crack in the 2nd-story window, and the postage stamp-sized front garden was littered with cigarette butts and empty cans of cheap lager. While Dimitru wasn't house-proud, you could set your watch by him. At 5:20 p.m. promptly each afternoon, he'd slam the front door behind him. And, dressed in the same light, faded jeans and a t-shirt, bearing the pinkish-white stains of the walls he plastered, he'd begin a brisk 10-minute walk to the tube. If he was downwind of Dimitru, sometimes he picked up a whiff of cheap aftershave or deodorant, both of which failed to mask the musky body odor, too deeply embedded in the fabric of his top to be washed out. He'd learned Dimitru was employed to work on a £1 million renovation project in the heart of West London's Notting Hill. The home belonged to a former Britpop star, and according to the planning application he'd found, 2 new, supersized basements had been excavated under an existing one to create an iceberg home. Now in its final stages, Dimitru worked throughout the night, plastering, polishing, and priming the walls. Dimitru was both a stickler for time and a creature of habit, choosing the same position on the platform by the tunnel's entrance so that he could travel in the last carriage. His bulky frame and arrogant attitude led him to either push his way to the front or use his bulk and menacing stare to intimidate commuters into parting like the Red Sea when they caught sight of him. 2 minutes, the gantry indicated, and his heart began to race. He took a deep breath and caught another sour whiff of the man's body odor. The bitter taste lingered in the back of his throat. He felt more sweat trickling from between his shoulder blades, down his spine, and stopping at the waistband of his underwear. Suddenly, Dimitru took a step back, perhaps sensing he was too close to the platform edge. "That's my foot, idiot," a man standing behind and a little to the left of him snapped. Dimitru turned his head to glare at him, assuming the impact of his stature would be enough to end the confrontation. "You call me idiot?" he replied in broken English. But the injured party wasn't ready to back down. "Yeah, fuck off back home," he sneered. Although the second man had brawn, he was considerably shorter than his counterpart. However, if either man believed their posturing might lead to a physical altercation, they'd have struggled. There was not enough room on the crowded platform to swing either a cat or a punch. Still, they continued. "What did you say?" asked Dimitru, as the clock counted down from 2 minutes to 1. When the man didn't reply, Dimitru turned his head back and muttered in his native tongue. Watching on, concerned, nerves threatened to take control of the man, with Dimitru set in his sights. His legs began to tremble involuntarily, so he closed his eyes tightly and counted slowly from 5 down to 1. It was now or never. He removed his concealed right hand and held it low and out of sight. Then, with all his strength, he jabbed a syringe into Dimitru.